Hello y'all. So today I'm just gonna give you guys an update on Khaleel Seavright, the great Toronto man that has been building tiny wooden shelters for homeless people to live in since September of 2020. So if you've been paying attention in the news, there has been a development and the city of Toronto is seeking a court order to stop Khaleel from making, fixing, and relocating his small shelters on city-owned land. This is such a terrible development because, again, it shows that the city is wasting their time, money, and resources into fighting a guy that's trying to find a temporary solution to make sure that our most vulnerable people do not succumb to the cold. And also, we're dealing with the pandemic. So this is really disheartening, and I'm going to include a petition in the description of this video so that you guys can ask or demand the city to stop with this injunction that they've ordered against Khaleel Seavright. Khaleel Seavright even had a video where he was saying that, look, I would love for these wooden shelters to not be like a permanent thing, but the way our shelter system works right now, the way housing is, that is the best solution we have right now, because the shelters are just not a safe area for homeless people. Like, in fact, even prior to the pandemic, right, shelters were not even meeting the basic standards that they should have, like making sure that there's, cleanliness, access to shower, clean drinking water. A lot of shelters weren't even meeting these requirements, right? So it's really inhumane. It's morally reprehensible to be destroying these shelters and ordering him to remove them because they're a safety hazard or because it doesn't look nice. I think it doesn't look nice for people to be suffering and dying in the cold. I would much rather have a bunch of wooden boxes around in different parks around the city so that we can help prolong the lives of these most vulnerable people in our city, right? Until we can find a permanent solution. As I mentioned in my first video on Khaleel Seavright, and I was referencing a study that showed how expensive it is to criminalize poverty. It actually makes more sense to find a permanent housing solution for people that are unable to, find a place to live, who are chronically homeless, right? And depending on where you are in the country, like if you're like in, let's say, Moncton, New Brunswick, it could cost around $46,000 per person a year. And this is because people who are dealing with homelessness, they have clashes with the police, fire department. So that's $46,000 that is coming out of taxpayers' money. That's for each person. In cities like Vancouver, Toronto, the more expensive cities, it can cost like $56,000 per person because of just the amount of clashes that they have with police. So it would make much more sense to find them with a permanent housing solution. And it's also important to note that there are currently 9 shelters with COVID outbreaks, 149 people testing positive for COVID. And even COVID variants have found their ways into these shelters. So I also want to bring up the fact that in Union Station, there was actually a tendency for people who are homeless to actually go inside there and, because it's warm, to stay there, right? They've actually now in Union Station, Metrolinx has now started barricading these benches and putting them on the floor. So again, this puts homeless people in a more precarious position. Where are they supposed to go? If the shelters are overburdened and they're not socially distanced properly, why would you want to increase the risk of transmission? This is why I think it's so counterproductive to be filing an injunction against Mr. Seavright. The guy is honestly an absolute legend. I hope that he's like given an Order of Canada or whatever highest civilian honor that we have, we need to give for Khaleel Seavright. Unfortunately, many of us would not do the kinds of things that this man is doing, and it's really up to the people. We really gotta rally behind him, people like him, organizations that are gonna fight to help the most vulnerable people around us. So again, make sure you guys sign the petition that I'm going to include in the description of this video. Also, please guys, if you want to see more progressive political commentary, please like and subscribe, hit the bell so you always get updates. Thank you guys for watching, but I'm going to get into a few more details. So how do we solve this problem of homelessness? There's a multitude of ways, but I'm going to go through a couple of things that we could address. So Canadian homeowners receive roughly over $8.6 billion in annual tax and other benefits, which is a good thing as it benefits the middle income households. And there are millions of households within this category, mind you. Spending on affordable housing for Canada's poorest households is less than 1/4 of that invested in home ownership. That's approximately $2.1 billion per year. and that has declined drastically over the past 25 years. It actually costs more to ignore the housing crisis than to fix it. That's what I really want you guys to take away from this video. Homelessness alone costs the Canadian economy roughly $7 billion a year, but the government invests $119 million annually to combat homelessness. This is through homelessness partnering strategy. Provinces and municipalities also invest their own money. So as you can see, there's clearly not enough money being used to address this problem. This is clearly an inadequate amount of money to fix this crisis, and it has consequently led to a large dip in the homelessness rate. Just to reiterate, we need to find a permanent solution to deal with this homelessness crisis. I don't want to hear anything about, oh, well, why don't you just get a job? You have to understand that about roughly a quarter of people who are on the streets have chronic mental health issues. We need to help them find a place to stay first of all, and then we can get them in touch with the caseworker, and we can help them get into job training and making sure that they are able to do their resume. We need to be a part of a society that will treat the poorest people with dignity, because that is what's right to do. So again, salute to Khaleel Seabright. I really hope that the city doesn't continue to take down these shelters. If they do continue to do that, at least make sure that you're gonna find permanent housing, right? I'm not talking about anything crazy, very simple things. We don't want people to freeze in the cold. It's the bare minimum that we should be doing in society, right? But that's all I have to say about this. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.